Welcome, 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 welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. Good to have you here, ladies. Thanks for being here. And we're just going with the flow of the energies and see what's happening, and also maybe get a little bit more into the complexity of giving and the complexity of receiving from a space, from a slightly more heightened awareness level. From even if you want to call it from an enlightened perspective, what does, enlightened giving and receiving look like? And then also, how can there's a connection to disconnection with that giving and receiving that I've been perceiving in the last couple of days. And that's what I'd like to explore a little bit more. How are we as um, heightened awareness beings still disconnecting? So maybe let's start with that. What is your, and this is, of course, this is just perspective from your own awareness, from your own experiences. Do you feel that, or am I the only one feeling it? Disconnection from a higher perspective, from a higher awareness perspective.
Well, it seems to me that there's still a lot of continued energetic deconstruction happening everywhere. And whether that be in the global narrative, in the collective, in the different cities, in the different energy structure that has sort of like bound cities into place. And I've just experienced a whole bunch of deconstruction here in San Francisco. But it also seems like individuals are going through that sort of same deconstruction process. And I mean, this has been going on for a while, but it seems to be more sort of urgent now, like it's coming up more fully in people's faces. So maybe there's more of an awareness around it. But when there's old patterns and programs deconstructing and new energy not quite set up yet, then I think there's some floundering that happens. Like you let go of the old stuff, right? And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, what am I connecting with now? So in light of this energy of receiving, for me, it's almost like just an allowance, right? That there's an allowance to open up to that flow of natural energy and receive. I don't know. I've been working a lot with the crystalline river of light from Pure Source and bringing that, through my body into my blueprint, connecting like all of these like multidimensional level parts of me. And so I've been, really receiving that energy on a daily basis and has, I mean, I think we all have this sort of like big picture level of awareness, but that's also allowed me to back up, back up, back up. And so I think what was giving and receiving for me previously is just a little bit different now.
Exactly, exactly. How is it different? Let me ask you one thing, as you, and the question goes to everyone, yeah? But let me ask it to you, since you've kicked it off here. Do you find it easier, and we're speaking now, do you find it easier to receive during those phases of deconstruction, or do you find it easier to give during those phases of deconstruction?
I mean, as as a recovering people pleaser, I I'm finding it easier to receive, right? Because for a long time in my life, I wasn't allowing myself to receive, right? I grew up in this sort of like, Protestant work ethic programming, where you are always giving, like you're giving, 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 you're giving away, you're doing community service, you're working with the church, you're working with, the family, and I see this programming still like in my mom, where, she has a joy in it, but there's also an obligation there. So like when I kind of disconnected from that energy and decided that I was only going to do things that brought me joy, and I love making food and I love feeding people and entertaining. And so there's like a giving in that way, but I also, wasn't very good at receiving before. It's almost like that programming didn't allow for the receiving. And so once I disconnected from that and connected back into my joy and spiritual truth in a way that allowed a joy in giving, not an obligation in giving. So now I only give when, I mean, I guess I'm always giving energetically, right? To Gaia, to clients, but I feel like, when that programming was cracked, then I saw a lot of people, right, not be a frequency match for me anymore. A lot of friends who were wanting that energy from me and support from me. And when I backed up to allow more of an equal exchange of energy, they weren't up for it, So bye, Felicia. So for me, it's easier now receiving.
So this
Well,
is,
maybe I had a lifetime to make up for it, right?
well, it's super profound. It's really profound, because what you are saying is, and I'm going to ask other people now the question, because I have the same, all the ex people pleasers. Let's do the PPs, people pleasers, ex people pleasers, was probably, I don't want to, generalize, but I think, we can all maybe do a bit of that, hands up. They have now become better in receiving, like you said. Is that your experience too? Yeah?
Yes.
Good. Now I would say let's tick that. And now comes the bugger bit of that. Because what I have started realizing by becoming better in receiving, exactly for those reasons, Tanya, that you've just, mentioned, because of the, signature frequency match, and you're understanding, more of energy works, and you no longer need to be needed and all of that. Is it a possibility that we're holding back on the giving now? Is it a possibility?
Yes.
Speak to that, Jen.
Well, I'd love to give freely, but I think that I've heard a lot of rhetoric about like there has to be an equal energy exchange, and not, well, I guess part of how I got over not wanting to receive was hearing the perspective that if I don't allow somebody to give to me, I'm not allowing them to have that karmic resolution with me, that I'm blocking them from that. And so that really helped me shift out of wanting to say no thank you when somebody wanted to give me something. But for me to give, like I do energy work, and I do work for people, a lot of it I don't need an exchange for that. You just want to help them in that moment. But sometimes I hesitate to give too much because I got people that are struggling. I don't want to take their money, or, when they're in a certain state, I don't want them to trade out energy work with me either. And so sometimes that messaging makes me hesitate to not give too much and inundate, because I don't really want an exchange back. I just want to help them through a difficult time. So I have to like check myself sometimes on giving too much, not because I'm overextending myself, but just because I don't want to overload the person or create an imbalance in that energy.
Thank you. Who else thinks that they could be now, after having done all this self-mastery work, that they're short-changing themselves by not giving?
I'd like to say something on that, Martina. I don't feel I'm holding back on the giving, but I am holding back on the pleasing. That's the difference for me. And I'm actually giving in a more profound way, really, than when I was running to please and felt obliged to do things. And I'm thinking of family, I suppose, more than anything in that. So they are still receiving from me, but in a different way to before. And it's also to do, I suppose, with time of life, because my children have grown now, so I'm not needed in the same way as before. So there's an opportunity in that, and in that space, there's an opportunity. And I was even thinking there one day, you know, about my life and looking at other people's lives and, you know, say people out in the war zones and all of that. And like their whole thing is just survival. And I was thinking, God, I have so many comforts, you know. And I thought, yeah, that's okay though that I have. It's fine. I don't apologize for the comforts that I have. But how am I using that to help myself be more available to myself and others? How am I using those comforts to make my life less, you know, about survival and more about expansion? That's what I find in this new energy of the giving and receiving. So I don't think I'll ever stop giving. I don't think I can, because I think while there's a breath in my body, I'm always giving. But it's not felt as if I'm giving of something that's depleting myself. In fact, it feels like in the giving, I am nourishing myself. And I really feel that now, as opposed to the pleasing piece before and the obligation piece before. So that giving that I'm in now is very nourishing. It's very fulfilling, and it's comfortable as well for me. I'm quite comfortable with it, but I'm also receiving very easily as well. The channel is both ways. You know, I'm not just giving and not receiving. I am receiving, and I'm receiving easier as well. And it's because that phase has passed of the pleasing, the the obligations to do this and do that, and all the things that I felt I had to do seems to be gone. So it left a void, and I like what it's being filled with.
So this is the true gift then, isn't it? When giving becomes the receiving equally.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what
I have turned the pleasing around, in the sense that if I'm being posed in a situation where my pleaser is starting to knock on the doors, like, yeah, you really want to do that, you know, then I'm like, first I'm stopping myself and I'm asking myself, what would I actually do to please myself in the pleasing? So that I first, and this is for many people egoistically or narcissistically, but for me it's like, what in this situation, if I want to please somebody, instead of just doing it, how can I please myself while pleasing the person doing it, right? So that it makes also me happy, myself happy, that I did it in a different way, instead of pleasing just for the purpose of pleasing, right? But I'm pleasing myself with doing it maybe in a different way. But then, you know, at the end, I'm pleasing also that person or whatever it was that I was supposed to do. And that is something that I noticed that it becomes automatic already, that I'm like, okay, what people are asking me, and I'm like, okay, what, and it's just nanoseconds, right? So what in how can I be happy in that as well, right? Without just giving it away. And I have also noticed that, but this is also because it's been kind of asked of the course that I'm doing, to actually spread out more of the, either taking in a little bit of the suffering and turning it into, you know, good energy, or actually giving out just nice. Okay, for instance, you're walking down the street and you see, you know, the guy who's cleaning the street, and you have the cashier lady and you have the cleaning lady, and now every time that I pass by a person like that, in my mind, I'm thanking them, you know, thank you. It's like this, not thank you for your service, but like thank you, you know, and I'm sending out a positive vibe on that. This morning already, the few mornings, every morning that I was reading the newsletter of what is going on in the world, kind of, I actually send out some nice thoughts. And for the Pope, although I'm not really, you know, happy with the Pope, but I'm sending him some energy to release a little bit of his suffering that he's going to. And I found out that this is something, although it might be like, or even having a good thought for Trump, like, okay, whatever he's going to do today. This sounds like, you know, it sounds a little bit Boy Scoutish, or, you know, like do a good deed every day. But in a sense, it also pleases me. And I notice how the energy is changing and how things are getting back to you. I have been gifted this week because I placed a really nice, because I pleased myself in actually giving a negative feedback. I have received 36 bottles of water for free. And I'm like, okay, I did it with the best of intention, and it was well received, and it came back, you know, positively. And I'm like, that's nice. So yeah, it's a bit weird going into this, but as you said, you know, the receiving and the giving and the receiving, it becomes just, you know, this really nice flow.
And I like, because you are actually illustrating here that you're working on giving more.
Mm-hmm.
Your focus is on the giving again. And I think this is what I have been experiencing in terms of myself by, you know, I wouldn't say I called myself a people pleaser. I've never been a people pleaser, but I've been curious about other people. So I've been a seeker. And through the seeking, I became a sharer of information, you know, in terms of that always pleased me in the first place, to be honest, you know. So I never really considered myself doing it for others because it was just so joyful for me. It was so automatic. And then with all this separation of density and with all of that, and then somehow I stopped that, or I did less of it. And just of late, I've been, because you can so easily, at a certain level, you can so easily get to that state where the gift is in the moment, the being, beyond the giving and the receiving. And then you end up being, you're no longer depending on receiving or giving, or at least not the obvious one, you know, the tangible one. Not obviously talking about the inhalation and the exhalation and all the energetics around it, that you almost get. So let's say, for instance, give an example, it's like you have a person, and they have no need for you to do anything, and you have no need for them to do anything for them. You know what I mean? The majority of it, other than, you know, maybe making a meal or this or that, but they have no turmoil, or they have their own sort of process. And all of a sudden there's this sacred neutrality, which I used to, you know, incorrectly sort of, you know, identified as, well, what does that create in a way? And then I think there is this choice that's coming through now to say, okay, I can totally handle receiving, totally learned that. And this is already the lie in this, because you never learn how to totally receive. But is it time to step back into the giving? and maybe now use choice to really choose whom I am giving, so that I don't disconnect from the wisdom that I can share or the energy that I have, because the purpose, like I think you said it, Mary, I don't know, or Tanya, it's like we are here to give and to receive. And I think, I'm probably not the only one thinking along those lines when we get to that state, okay, ease, joy, and glory, and just do the things. Is it time to step back into service in a different way? And how do we still disconnect? Or are we not? And then as I'm starting to ask these questions, I'm getting different energies coming into my, some people would probably say, oh, this is because you're working with the heart, right? I don't know if that's what it is. I'm starting to receive different kind of energies that I wouldn't expect to be a signature frequency match. And I'm starting to realize, like, oh, signature frequency matches come in all shapes and forms. And just then I realized that probably what you think that you have left behind is something that needs to come back into the forefront now, or needs to come forward now.
But with more discernment.
With more discernment, with a new kind of passion.
Well, and level of awareness also.
Level of awareness, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, more emergent level.
And a more inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm perceiving now with these, and at the same time, there's an emptiness about that. And that emptiness creates the fullness. So there is this idea of you have to become completely empty or sacred neutral. There's an emptiness for me. Sacred neutrality has an emptiness feeling to it. And at the same time, it's got this fullness to it. And it's almost like once we have gotten to a certain level of our individual realization journey, we then move back without letting go of everything that we've learned, but emanating whatever we have learned, having our boundaries, becoming those shapeshifters, because the boundaries are obviously any boundary that we define certain things as us, they are flexible, and depending on where we're going, they are expanding or they have to contract, so become those shapeshifters and come from that emptiness where we cleared everything back into the fullness, and then see what gets attracted. Does that make sense?
And I had an interesting real life experience the other day that I think fits really nicely into this conversation, with this expansion and contraction and like fullness and energetic emanation in neutrality. So like I was telling you guys earlier, I had to go into the court on Friday and on Monday for jury duty. And, it involves energy clearing, but I was taking the bus. If you want the real San Francisco experience, dude, take the bus. So I get on at General Hospital right near, and while I'm waiting for the bus stop, all of a sudden there's these two guys who show up and they're fighting. They're arguing, they're swearing at each other. And I think I know one of the guys was homeless. I'm not sure about the other guy, but they're, fighting. And one of the guys is really harassing the other guy, but they're arguing. I don't know what's going on. So, I'm like, everybody in the bus stop, it just looks like a wave of birds, right? Everybody moves this way away from them, and everybody moves this way away from them. And so I just, set up my energy field to be grounded, to be in my blueprint, to just emanate light. And then, the guy walks far, one of the guys walks far down the street, and the other guy follows him. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're gone there. So then the bus comes and I get on the bus, and they're right behind me on the bus, fighting still. I'm like, okay, so I go and sit down, and I just grounded my light and sent that bubble of light out from my heart. And then I sent I put all the Reiki symbols at the outside of my aura, and just said, this energy is here. If anybody wants to receive it, they can receive it. And, I could see how uncomfortable all these people were on the bus, because they didn't know, are these guys going to come to blows? And I thought about saying something, but I'm like, no, I don't need to entangle with the energy. I'm just going to set up my energy field and allow that energy to expand, with the intention that if anybody wants this sort of like calm healing, they can receive it. And within like a minute, those guys sat down and shut up. And everybody, you could just feel this collective like sigh on the bus. And it was an uneventful ride for the next 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So that's for me, that's sort of what you're talking about, right? Being able to be in a neutral space, holding your own light and just emanating, right? And that energy field, it can expand and it can contract depending upon what's needed. I found as I went down into the civil court, and I was dismissed immediately, but I knew that I had to ground universal law energy. So I just sat there and then expanded my bubble of light, to encompass that whole courthouse, and then the whole city hall, and that whole like energetic grid system as that was detangling, to, be able to ground those codes that were grounded, ground those universal higher frequency codes that were grounded. So, and then, I went on my merry way, I brought my energy field back, to my normal, my normal field. And it was kind of funny, because as I was on the bus, I have a big down coat that I wear, and my coat got stuck between the seats on the bus. And so when I was getting off the bus, my coat ripped. And it ripped in a way, just one panel at the bottom. But all of a sudden, all these feathers, started coming out of the coat, right? So I thought, I've been wearing this coat. This coat went to Egypt. This coat has been, all over the world with me. I like to travel with it because it's like traveling in a sleeping bag. And here are the feathers that were encoded from all of these different places, from all of the crystals I have, that are just flying around this whole area that's receiving this energy clearing. And so I was asking people, well, do you have any tape? Maybe I can tape my coat, right? And so I was putting also myself in a position of receiving by asking, can you help me? Can you help me with some tape to tape my coat? So, talk to janitors, and I talked to the, security guards, and, all these different people. Nobody had any tape, and all the feathers needed to go where they're going to go. And then later that day, as I was walking, I found a big, beautiful hawk feather. So I thought I got my feathers back all in one big feather.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's a great story. And I think also important focus for me on this one is to realize that fullness again, that does not make a difference between situations, between people, between positions. And, it's almost like that with higher levels of awareness, if we're getting the balance between giving and receiving right, then we are being fully grounded to go back out into the world and look and find those moments of which some people would call, well, she's just been on the bus. What's the big deal? Look what you made out of this journey by just being on the bus, all this stuff that you learned through being there, that you experienced, Some other people say, what the fuck, what happened on the bus today? And they're just making a drama out of it. And you just totally out-created that,
And on the bus, there's always a drama.
Yes.
Always. But whether we can you know, where when I see it, I try to hold the space to just be in that neutral position, and yeah, if people want to receive that, they can.
So in order to avoid disconnection, it's really a matter of getting back into the nitty-gritty moments of physical living. And that's,
I mean, that's where, for me, that's where a lot of the joy comes,
Isn't it?
right? It's hard, sure, but
Mm.
it's also rewarding,
But
right?
that
When you
is
can
exactly,
transmute it.
but that is exactly the contract we have here.
Mm.
We have here on this plane. I mean, you know, that's the contract, to live, to experience, to feel, to go into that. Because on the consciousness level, we can't, you know, there is no pain on the consciousness level. I mean, you know, there might be agony if you want to philosophize about it, but I mean, there is no real experience, you know, you will not know, you know, how the raspberry ice cream tastes, you know, or strawberry ice cream, or vanilla and chocolate and all that, right?
absolutely. And that really is what we are discussing today. It's like once you've gone through down the path of spirituality and enlightenment, and you have those, you know, sort of states of samsara, whatever you want to call it, you know, the invitation is to come back into
Yes.
and receive, because that becomes a bit of a receiving journey where we're really learning the receiving from all the different dimensions, you know, and things like that. Because it's not a tangible realm, we're not necessarily, you know, getting drawn into the giving. At least sometimes you are more on the receiving. It's easier to talk about giving in the tangible world, right? And this is the invitation. And I think, you know, sometimes we can get caught in that enlightenment realm. So much so, if you think of the dualists, they completely lose their way of being. They can no longer function
The
in this
non-dual.
reality. Yeah, the non-dualists, because they're just all of a sudden, oh, hello.
Baby, hi. Hi, what's up? What a cutie.
And those sort of you know, feelings, they come through at times, you know, because there is no need, there is no want at times, and all of a sudden you are standing in front of choices, and all you need to do is choose. And that is probably one of the most difficult things to do, to keep on choosing in 10-second increments, you know, because that's what it is. Because that's not something that used to come natural to us, because we didn't even know what choice was. It was
When I think about all those, you know, years and years of trying to gain enlightenment, right? And how you know, the monks meditate on the mountaintop and do their, you know, their prayers, their prayer wheels. And, you know, it's almost like that perception of enlightenment is an old energy perception. Like we can receive that in many different ways. And each one of us has had our own journey to understanding what that means. Right. And for me, anyway, it's kind of layers and layers and layers, right? That get peeled away and peeled away. And then you have your aha moment and you feel on top of the world. And then all of a sudden something else comes in to, you know, change your perception of that. Like, I don't know anything. And then all of a sudden you have that aha moment again. Oh, I get that now. Right. And so these levels and layers, you know, I think really bring a richness of experience for me.
Every time I hear enlightenment, I always hear one of the village people up in the Burmese mountains was like, yeah, it's wonderful to go and meditate. You know, they use the word there are 3 translations going on, one from the ethnic language into the Burmese language, from the Burmese language into English, but making it short. Yeah, it's wonderful that the monks are here to meditate, but in the end, you know, there's still somebody who needs to go and plant the rice. And that is, for me, it's like, you know, yeah, it's nice. You go into meditation and it's wonderful and it helps a lot and it's good coming into stillness and whatever you have an experience there and what have you not. But in the end, if you want to survive here, you still need to go and plant the rice.
Yeah. And what if you can plant the rice in a state of beingness that allows you to not
Absolutely.
forget that you are, in fact, are that little
Mhm.
kernel of rice, and you are the water you're standing in, and you are all of that.
Mhm.
And I think this is really what multidimensional living at the end of the day is like working with your hands, using your hands, creating, and at the same time acknowledging yourself as that neutral observer in the back that is actually contributing or could alternatively, you know, also hinder the process. Let's not forget about that. But there is not just one thing that happens when we are creating something, even if it is by ourselves. We are interacting with the colors, with the canvas, with, you know, and all the different charts and parts that are, you know, a part of that energy soup that we're working within.
And then when you talk about that, I think about like the giving and receiving that is part of creating, because we are giving that frequency out and that creation out for other people to share in that, and then we're receiving that unlimited potential while we are in the act of creating in the creative energy.
Well, and this is also why giving and receiving is related to electrics and magnetism, to male and female, to yang and yin, you know, and it's all, you know, always connecting. And there is
Attraction and repulsion.
Mm-hmm.
exactly opposition, you know, and contraction and expansion, and this lovely duality of consciousness that we are experiencing, and of course that is the creation process. And we've talked about the 0 point energy before. It's like there has to be a contrasting or opposing sort of energy or different energy that comes together, that then as we are working with it, as we are neutralizing it, as we are spiraling and vortexing in that 0 point energy, that is pretty much the heart here, I would say, you know, the higher heart. And we have that technology that does that automatically, especially as a healer. And it's you probably see this yourself, like you know, Tanya, the bus idea. You see those people fighting. So it's this one energy. So what does she do? She goes into stillness. And then what does the body do? It brings it all together. Washing machine. And what remains is raw energy to play with, raw potential. And this is what we do as healers. You know, when people come to us, usually there's chaos in their lives. And all we do is we create the opposite of that energetically. And then we bring it together, because that's what the technology really does. The healer technology within our bodies does. And then all of a sudden there's that neutral space, again, that raw potential. And that is then the client's responsibility and gift and opportunity to tap into that and do something with that, you know. So that's that. So we are continuously, once we're starting to acknowledge ourselves as those transmuters and alchemists of energy, of opposing energy, then we are creators by just doing that. I think there's this creation myth that we have to do something with our hands. We don't have to. We will eventually anyway, but the first point of action is to acknowledge that energetically we are doing by giving, receiving, by torsioning those contrasting energies all the time. So we are creating this emptiness because we are creating the end of chaos. And then order, that fullness can come through again. So we are continuously creating order into chaos. But then we also need to sometimes create chaos to switch it over, because otherwise it gets boring, frustrating. So and this is, I think, the realization that it's no point to just be goody two shoes and try to be, you know, always the light and the positive, because you are that anyhow. You need to allow yourself sometimes to get angry, to give other people the possibility. And I don't know if you find that. I find that often when I have people that are too relaxed, I often create some shit. Yeah. Because nothing, you know, it's like, okay, come on. If I'm like this as well, it's like nothing happens. And even if you don't have to create shit, you can just ask a question. So it's like, you know, because it is required to have those two different poles.
For me, that chaos that I like to bring in is like for music and dance. You know, if things are too stagnant, then you know, there's nothing like a good warm up, like a good disco song, right? To get people on the dance floor, right? Or get that energy like moving and flowing again. And that dance, you know, as you're moving through a space where people are sitting and stagnant, right? It changes the flow of energy. It makes it more electric and kinetic. Changes the magnetics also. But it's also that drum beat, right? It's like the cosmic heartbeat, the heartbeat of Gaia, the heartbeat of Isis, the heartbeat of Earth, of Terra, of Gaia, of Aramat, you know, just all through that portal. It's the drum, it's the feet pounding on the ground that create those energetic ripples that ripple out into the multiverse.
Exactly. And that's what movement really is. Movement as you move through space. And every space has imprints of time, even though you might not see it or not, but your body literally works with those and does this, you know, 0 point energy, those vacuum force continuously. So sometimes when I'm at home and, you know, it feels too comfortable. You could call it their stagnant energy. It's almost too comfortable, because it's funny. You don't necessarily say, oh, there's stagnant energy. It's just, it feels really comfortable, which can be stagnant energy as well. But then the body, it's not the mind that says, oh my God, you have to go now outside and just go for a walk. And, you know, it's not the mind, it's the body that says you need to move, because you're not doing all this torsioning that you're supposed to be doing. Yes, exactly. And sometimes that's what it is. You just got to go into a shop. You don't have to speak to people. You don't have to buy anything. You just have to allow the body to do its job.
And maybe that's walking down the street and, you know, listening to music and like dancing your way to wherever you're going, you know, which creates a chaos in a good way, right? Because it pulls people out of their regular way of perceiving things.
Yeah. And then I think we can also add to that, if you really enjoy receiving and you're really, really acknowledging your capacity of being an energy transmuter and an alchemist, then you will always be drawn to chaotic situations or chaotic people. And, you know, that idea of having to disconnect from them is probably not working in your favor, because that's exactly what you're good at. To stay in that, because that is what your body actually thrives on. And that doesn't necessarily mean they have to sit in your vicinity. They can't be in other countries. They can be across the ocean. And you will still do transformational work for them and with them in your dreams, in your day-to-day space. And all of that is, again, acknowledging it, because sometimes you don't know that you're doing this. And, so many people think, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing enough. I'm not using my hands enough. But hands are just the extension of the body. The body continuously, depending on your DNA, depending on your purpose, depending on your soul's mission. And, the soul is the information that's being projected into the body. What kind of soul are you? You're working nonstop.
Yeah, I think we all are, whether we're aware of it or not.
And the responsibility now sometimes is just to become aware of it, because that will make a change. Because there can come frustration and think, oh, I'm disconnecting. And are you really? Or are you just perceiving an emptiness because there's a neutrality to your sense of perception? That is actually a fullness. So it's like taking everything and turning it upside down. Everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, And really, the totality of consciousness is emptiness.
I tend to look forward now to the periods of time where things go a little bit quiet. Like where I used to feel disconnected. I don't feel disconnected anymore. It just feels quiet. But to me, that's where I find myself in the void space, and it gives me time to be still and not have a lot of distractions. And then when I come out of it, I usually end up in some kind of an upswing. So to me now, when things start to get quiet and I feel myself in that void space, rather than dreading it or feeling disconnected or feeling isolated, like I really embrace that and I enjoy it. Like I find the space to enjoy it.
Yeah. It becomes a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that is a choice is not something you need to let go. It's like, I've got Emma back in the house and I can see her getting overwhelmed because she's come back with all her stuff and it's pretty much all in her room and you can't even walk in the room. She's getting overwhelmed, right? And I'm saying, Emma, it's a choice to keep these things because frankly, you don't need all that, what you got there. Yeah, but I can sell it on Vinted. I said, yes, and that's all good. But remember, it's a choice that you're making, because you could also say one thing now and say, take this whole thing and throw it out. Put it on the street, people will pick it up because that's how it works here. You can
Here
do
too.
you can do that. Yeah, but I'm not doing it. I know you're not doing it, but you could, and other people would do it. Because frankly, we have markets here. We go next week, as soon as the weather comes, and we get the whole amount back. No worries whatsoever. Yeah, but you see, and this is the thing. We sometimes get overwhelmed with something, but we're still choosing it. Often we need somebody to come in and say, oh no, take this, throw. Oh, am I allowed to do this? What do you mean allowed to do this? You allow yourself to do whatever you want to allow yourself to do. And yes, of course, we can say, look, it's attachment, and you paid for it, and you had to make the money. But this is like, whoa, what's going on here? Yeah, it's a choice. It's just a choice. Sounds so easy, right?
Well, it seems too that there's a lot of that sort of letting go of the old energy. right?
Mhm.
And whether it be like stuff that's in the house, we've lived in this house for 23 years this year. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of stuff, right, that could be decluttered or gotten rid of, but then stuff that gets used all the time. And I think that like accumulation for, I don't know, what safety or security to bring all of these belongings around, and whether they're like stuff from family or, stuff that has sentimental value. It's like, how do you sort through things and get rid of things, right? Everything could be thrown out or put on the street, but then you wouldn't have that like mixing bowl that you use for, all of the things all of the sweet treats, whatever. So I think there's that fine line, like what is serving you, what are you using, what is inspiring you, and what is just detritus that you can release. And
Absolutely.
I think energetically it works like that too. Or whether it's like people in your life, that happens as well. Like what's not energetically serving you, you're just not a frequency match for that anymore.
You see, and this is sometimes the thing, where I often have to go, forget everything, forget every belief that you still hold, forget any words you would define it, and go with the energy. Why is that person or that pullover or that, piece of, I don't know, furniture still in my life? Is it still a signature frequency of mine?
Mm.
There must be a signature, otherwise it wouldn't be in my life. And then the question comes in, is there a receiving that I haven't done yet? Or is there a giving that I haven't done yet? Released. Because it's simple to say, well, sometimes you just have to say, no, I don't want this anymore. I gotta leave, especially when it comes to people and relationships. You gotta get out, you gotta get out. This is not the right person for you. And then what happens the next relationship, you just walk into the same. There has to be a natural release. And the way to look at that is, if that person, let's use a person or a thing, is still in my life, then there is still something that is unresolved. But is it a receiving? So we can define that a bit further then. Is it a receiving? Do I not receive from this person, or do I not give to that person or that blogger or that, whatever that is?
I have a funny story about that, Martina. My grandpa was a coin collector. And so after he passed away, my mom took a lot of his coins and gave some to me and my sister. She divided everything up, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I haven't been like guided to do anything. It's just like, okay, I'm going to put them on the shelf and leave them there. And when I'm inspired to do something, I will. So we went to a 50th anniversary party in November, December. And it's like 50 years. They were married in 1974. And I just got like a tap on the shoulder from my grandpa. There's a coin there for them. And so I went and I looked through the coins, and there was a proof silver dollar from 1974. I'm like, this is perfect.
Wow.
So I, made a little card for them and put it in the envelope. And my husband's like, you're giving them that? That's weird. Like, why would you? I'm like, I don't know. I just have to give it to them. So I did. And that night after the party, after they were home and opening their gifts, we got the cutest video. I had no idea that this guy had a coin collection and collected silver proof dollars. And so that was like the perfect gift for, like, I didn't know that. I'm just like, I don't know why. I just have to give him this.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of the things that, talking about giving, like what has had value right, to someone in your life that's not having value to you, that's just sitting around. That's one of my favorite things to do, is like wrap it up and gift it. And only when there's inspiration to do so, though. Otherwise, it's not energetically resonant.
Yeah.
Right.
And oh, yeah, sorry.
Well, I
Go.
love that story, Tanya, but this conversation brings me back to something that you said. You had a focused topic. It's been more than a year ago now, Martina, but you said, like, are you ready and willing to give up everything, to give everything away?
Good question.
And that conversation stayed with me. That comes up for me quite a bit. So, like, I don't like clutter. Although I'll be honest with you, remember I took down all my crosses to hang up my portal painting? They're still sitting in a box in my sunroom. I haven't gotten them in me to give them away yet, but that's coming. But like, even like the healing center, creating that, and then when it got to a point where I needed to let somebody else take it and go with it, like, I got my knickers in a twitch for a day or so, but then I was like, when it's time, you've got to be ready and willing to let it go, to let it all go. That conversation really has stayed with me, and it has helped me, like, not resist, like, keeping a depth grip on things that are no longer a match for where I'm going and what I'm doing. Holding on to objects is the same thing. The more you hold the energy of the past, it anchors you down instead of letting you be free. So I don't hold on to things much at all anymore.
Yeah. I used to use that question working with people who had issues with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another word you can, instead of let go, use the word lose, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really heavy in energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they would go on about what a bitch their mum was and la la la. And then the question was, so are you willing to lose your mother? No, mother. Oh, you're telling me for an hour now what a bitch is, and you can't live your life, and this. Now I'm offering you a question. Would you like to, are you willing to lose your mother? No. That brings up so much. As soon as you bring in that question, as you say, it's like, whoa. Of course, it's not go and take a rifle and shoot your mother, but it's like, okay, well, let's look at that energy that's underneath. What's actually happening there? And the other thing, I was like, what I'm wearing today, you know, so I've had this for years and I really like it because it's a bit funky and it just goes until here, you know, but I haven't worn it for a long time. So, and it, you know, I was going through my cupboard as Emma's going through her drama. I'm thinking, okay, let me latch onto this energy, and because I'm just as bad as her, really. So I take all the stuff out, and this pops out. And so, yeah, I want to be one today, and I'm like, okay, so let's make a deal. I'm gonna wear you today at the show, and then afterwards we're done. Contract finished. She's been talking to me the whole show. No, I don't want to go. The contract yet. Because I can see myself, and I'm like, okay, shut up now. You know.
There's a pair of training trousers lying on the sofa that is over 15 years old. It is frail. It is horrible. I cannot wear it anymore. I bought a new pair today, okay, similar, because then I can let that one go because it doesn't want to leave this house. I cannot even wear it in the house anymore. It's that full of stains and patches, and it's like, really?
No, but you just said it. You don't have to wear it. It just wants to stay in the house.
Yeah, well, you know what am I doing? You know, I'm using it for cleaning. You know, I mean, I have like
But you see, giving and receiving.
oh sure.
Oh my God.
Are we receiving the messages from, you know, those infused, those are all imprinted, whoever has worn that before me, because especially me, I buy secondhand shop. I'm a secondhand shop buyer. So, you know, all these energies are talking. Even though, I mean, that's me now. I've had this for so long. But sometimes what I'm saying is oops, low battery. Sometimes what I'm saying is, it just takes that one time you wear it. And then the piece of clothing is happy to be let go. Not everything, obviously, but it happens often that I'm thinking when I put something away and I'm not entirely sure, it's like, okay, let me wear it one more time. And then the contract is finished. And then you can.
And I think about like Marissa's playing with the quilt. And I think about like the way that all of that fabric is repurposed, right? All of these old things that were ready to be let go, right? All of a sudden have a new life as they're come together in the quilt, right? And that's alchemy also, right? Bringing that old thing that was ready to be let go of, but then transforming it into something new, something usable, right? And think about like people coming from, I mean, quilting is a long tradition, especially from like the European settlers that came into America. They didn't have fabric weaving mills, right? They had one pair of clothing for regular day and one pair of clothing for Sunday or their holy day. And everything else got repurposed and turned into, reused and turned into something else. And so this, almost like this economic culture has changed our perception that now everything is like easily thrown away.
Exactly. And it goes against universal laws of transmutation and alchemy, where you can literally, change the energy of it by using that 0 point energy, using your heart plasma, and outcreate it into something else. And that's not just tangible things. That's obviously with every emotion. That's with every. So for instance, to use an example, for you feel anger, and what would you consider the opposing energy of anger? Whatever that is for you, you then bring it together. And I like using the washing machine, I throw it into the washing machine and I run the cycles. And even when I have the washing going, and I hear it working, I say, okay, let's just throw all the emotions and everything that's going on in this house that is not sacred neutral. Let's just throw it all in, wash it, And then when I take the washing out, I just hang it up. And when I hang it up, there is the opportunity for anyone who wants to tap into that raw potential, because I don't keep the old water, the dirty water. So that goes. And then I use the new things. Oh, hello, Snooky. You see, giving and receiving is so easy. You just like what
I
a magician you are.
Sweet. I have a lot of crystals and because of the work I do, but because I also just love the rocks and they talk to me. And today the crystal that came up for our group today is kyanite. This
Okay.
has to do with energetic alignment. But if you look at the kyanite, you can see how porous and striated it is. And so as I pulled out this kyanite today, a little piece fell off. And that happens with selenite, it happens with kyanite. So there's a little piece there. And so one of the things that I do to repurpose all of these little pieces that fall off is when I go to the beach, I pick up little shells that want to be picked up. And so then I, put the little pieces of crystal inside the shell and then drip wax on it to seal it. And it works. These work as great energetic mitigators. So you can put them on your router to mitigate EMFs. You can put them, in different places if there's stuck energy. And all of these little pieces work as like little like starbursts of earth to help move energy that needs to move. So they're, another way to reuse. When I was working in City Hall this week, one of the first Lemurian seed crystals I got fell on the floor of City Hall and shattered into five sort of bigger pieces and then a whole bunch of little pieces. I'm like, I guess you want to stay. I guess some of you wants to stay here. So I, planted the pieces that wanted to stay there and planted some somewhere else and then brought two home, and they wanted to work in a different way than they've been working. So, allowing that deconstruction of energy, if something is breaking, it's not going to be used in the way that it was used previously, but maybe it can be repurposed into something valuable and transmutive and alchemizing.
And I think that's a beautiful, intro actually to the next, to the thing that I was going to mention as well, because you're talking about energetic alignment and that out creation of giving and receiving. And I think we have tomorrow and the day after, we've got this new moon, right? Where we have the alignments of the 6 planets aligning in Pisces, right? In the last zodiac. And I got this I receive Astro, what's it called? Newsletter from Astro. God, I should have written it down. Forgot. Anyway, got a newsletter from an astrology newsletter, and they were mentioning that, and they connected it to the water energy again, as you're mentioning your shells, that connected it to the water energy. And the mermaid. Astro tells, no. I should remember, but I always do that because, whatever. I'll tell you later, guys. Anyway, so they're mentioning the mermaid and, the tone of the song of the mermaid that attracts the sailors into the depth of the ocean and into the unpredictability. Now, and this is obviously where we're heading in now. We've been heading into this direction for a long time, but it's just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, more mystical and more physically embodied. That's what I want to call it. More physically, the more mystical it becomes, the more physically embodied we become. And that unpredictability will require us to outcreate the giving and the receiving again, because there will be different levels of receiving that are coming towards us, that we probably have never, so we can't even go back to the past. Well, we could maybe if we go all the way back to the Hyperborean days, but even then we didn't have those experiences that we are creating now, with all the level of awareness that we didn't have when we were plasmic beings or semi-solid beings with group soul consciousness, because that individuation journey that we have been through over the last couple of million years has created us into something that none of us have ever been before. So we're all on the same level. Is not, we're all in the same playground. We're all in the same playground. And it is a playground. We're all toddlers, like your little man here. Or is it a boy? Yeah. And he's showing us. Yeah.
The lightness of heart and the playfulness.
And maybe that's
right. And the being.
Yeah. To really let go and enjoy and embrace the emptiness that allows us to become full, but in a completely different sort of way. And thanks for that, the reminder. Actually, are we willing to lose everything?
I've been watching, well, it's funny you mentioned alignment, because kyanite is one of the crystals that really connects with energetic alignment.
Yeah.
Just talking about the new moon tomorrow, it's also the start of the next 13-day cycle in the galactic calendar.
Mhm.
So I think that's really interesting. The magnetic eagle tomorrow.
Mhm.
But I've been watching this show, Stargate One. I don't know. I've been just guided to binge watch this series. And there was an episode where they go to this planet, and the children are injected with these nanites that stimulate their brain electrons to be able to learn a lot very quickly and very easily. So these young children are very brilliant. And then once they learn a certain amount of things, they go through this process where the nanites are extracted, and then one nanite with their knowledge base given to each of the people in their civilization. But this also creates a void in the child to bring them back to that state of like innocent infancy, because the nanites created the neural pathways. The neural pathways weren't created on their own. So once those were taken out, then all of a sudden this 11, 13-year-old child is back to this energetic state of infancy without those neural pathways in the brain. And so this culture didn't know how to, like what school was, and so of course the Stargate people taught them that. But I just think that's really, really interesting to what we're talking about, that giving and receiving, but also that state of the innocent heart that is creating those new neural pathways to experience life. And as each of us experience something new, something different, something out of our comfort zone, we create those new neural pathways, even though we're adults. And, we all know neuroplasticity in adults goes way down from when you're like under 7 years old, right? We're very neuroplastic then.
Yeah, which is just why it's so important to also keep, the playfulness up, to be willing to continue to play, because through play you learn, and you learn more easily. So and also picking up on this learning something new every day. That's just, it keeps you engaged in whatever it is. I I have this discussion with my dad on a daily basis currently. I'm like, do something. Just do something. Find a new thing, find a new hobby, just do something different. But it's like, no, stuck in the truck, stuck in these, in these cart ruts where you can't get out. It's just so weird. But yeah, no, with this which is why I'm constantly trying to learn something new, whatever it is. Listening to something, reading something, now I'm just playing around with colors again. And yeah, so, and it keeps you engaged.
Yeah. And you see, this is the bigger picture of balance, how we balance each other. I'm almost wondering if you'd start taking on your dad's demeanor just for a day or 2 or 3, how would he counter that? Because it has to be a balance, right? And you guys have a strong relationship. So the more you do, the less he will.
Yeah.
And whoosh, possibly, I'm not saying that is the case, but could possibly be, especially because it's a new thing for the two of you guys being together.
What I could do, and that is just so much fun, I could actually just go and lay down with him in bed and watch TV all day. It's not all, not all, but and he would even be so happy if I would do that.
Well, test it out. Maybe the first time around, then he'll start feeling, well, this is weird,
No,
know.
because I cannot help myself not commenting on what he's watching. So
Right.
there we have the problem.
Distraction.
Well, one of the things that happened with my husband and I after I went into the court that day, he had to run all kinds of errands all over town, and so he said he went, he just sort of went on a journey, went on an adventure, and as I got out of my comfort zone because I don't normally go to court. He got out of his comfort zone and went, you know, in all these different directions from where I went. And then we were able to come back together like that day and share our experiences and share that energy. So I wonder, just creating almost like, I don't know, a scavenger hunt or something different, like out of the comfort zone, like that person goes that way, you go this way, and then you come back together. But I think also having those experiences together, like I was thinking, Martina, how almost like energetically polarized, but also holding space that you and your partner are right now. Plan a little adventure, something that you've never done together, and just go out on a date, something that you've never done together,
Yeah, I don't
and
think we have
change it
ever
up.
been on a date.
Yeah.
I don't think we have been on a date, to be honest, really.
Mhm.
On a proper one.
Yeah. And then, I think about, you and your family too, Sandrine. Plan something, go out and do something, together as a family that you normally wouldn't do, right? And see how that changes the neural pathways that, then inspires that sense of play, whether it's going to a museum and seeing art, or, I mean, whatever, it can be anything, just something that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. I've started 5 rhythm dancing. Do you guys know 5 rhythm? Gabriella Roth?
Mhm. I have one of my regular clients is a practitioner for 5 rhythms.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, because it's exercise, you dance for 2 hours and you go through all the different rhythms. And this place I go to is quite. They have every week they have a different practitioner, so a different one who runs it, which is nice because they're using different music and everything. And you get an opportunity to do your own thing, and at the same time you can interact if you.
Fine.
You got the movement, and obviously there's this conscious referencing to you connect with your feet and with your hands. It's a very conscious kind of dancing. So that's what I've started now, just to really, I don't know, get back into the sort of doing something completely different, getting out of my left hemisphere, basically. And last time I did, I played with the 0 point energy whilst I was doing it. So I had this picture Isa posted, which was the heart plasma. You saw it probably gold, silver outside. And while I was dancing that energy, the male, the female, the movement and all of it. And it was interesting. By the time it came to the end, all I could do is stand completely still and grounding that vortex that I had created with all the other people being there, and grounding it in. And I couldn't even open my mouth afterwards, because there was such stillness. And it reminded me of Sandrine, of the Devish, the whirlers, whirlers, that we saw in Turkey when we were, because I didn't have, the fancy dress on, but that's how it felt, because I danced that energy. And it was interesting that, at the end you sit in a group and some people say something or not. And there was this one guy who said, it felt particularly cohesive today. Hold on, girls. You're welcome.
I will have another session of the biodanza on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And on that note, I will have to dance away.
Dance away, my darling. Thanks for being
here.
Dance.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, of course. The other thing I've started fencing.
Oh.
So I had my first fencing class on Monday, and it was absolutely exhausting. I was a bit, because it started late and then it took ages to get, you need all your outfits and your helmets and, we were about 10 people and does this fit? And then you have all your layers. And by the time we got fencing, I thought, oh, we only have like 10 minutes, ridiculous. 5 minutes, I was flat out. It's like, because my body is such a bitch. I'm telling you guys, we started and my body can't stop. It was like, it's like full on. And it's like, I can't breathe. And others just took it slow practice, and I'm in it. So I have to really have a word with my body and say, we're not going to do this. We're just going to do one little sticky, get a little prick out of this guy. No, and that's it. But absolutely, really, really good exercise. Because from a body perspective, you are super, super grounded. You are in a sort of bend your knee situation, so you have and the upper body is completely straight, shoulders are relaxed, so it's almost like, think of yourself doing a warrior pose, warrior two pose, and you continuously standing in warrior two pose. But on the one hand, I'm a lefty, so you got your, what's it called, sword? I can't remember what this is. Not sword, whatever that's.
Foil.
Foil?
Foil.
Say again?
Foil. I
Foil.
think it's FOIL, right? Is what the fencing sword is called.
I was too excited by that time. And then so really good for the body. And the intensity of it, I mean, obviously I could have backed down a little bit, but still, you can see that there were a couple of really good ones. They had the electrical thing on their feet and everything. There's not much going on, and you think this is utterly boring. Why do I even get dressed for this? And then you get started and it's like, whoa, really intense. So intense spurts of intensity, and then you relax again, and then you go again. So really fun. So I've got 4 more sessions. Let's see how I go with that. I hope I haven't scared, everyone.
They're going to partner up and you're going to be standing alone and have
I
to
know,
mess with the
probably I
instructor.
will. That's okay. Receiving and giving, right? Giving and receiving.
That's
So
right.
yeah, but I felt drawn in the last couple of weeks to do something really with people in a group. Don't need to know them, but you just give and receive. You give and receive in a playful manner, in a dancing and that movement. And it is in a sports hall, but it doesn't matter, because you got all these people. And then of course, as soon as you have this foil in your hand, you become, the knight that you used to be, or the musketeer that you used to be, and all these memories come flooding back in. Not that I have naturally picked it up right away, but just by doing the stance, because there is a familiarity to it when you're drawn to something slightly out of, the ordinary, because why would I do this? And I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And I do know that I have so many lifetimes, connected to that kind of, you didn't used to be sport at the time, So that is sometimes something where we can also use our bodies to help us remember or bring up certain energies, emotions, feelings, light packages.
I've been doing that sort of same thing, Martina, where I've been really working on the soul, previous soul shard alignment within my heart portal and bringing that awareness forward. And so, there's so many things that are within the cellular memory of those soul shards or past life parts of ourselves, our previous incarnations or future incarnations, that when we like hold a tool like that, it all of a sudden like floods the memory system and connects What I see when you were talking about that is almost like these cellular reconnections, right? That spark through the heart portal, right? Neural, through the sacred mind portal, through the heart portal, through the Dantian, that sacred body portal, and it all like aligns and sparks together and creates more of who we are, our usness, our, your you-ness. It becomes forward and blended in a way that not picking up that foil wouldn't have done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even though maybe the memory is there, it's like when you add the physical cellular memory of that part, those parts of you, it connects in a way that it engages and connects in a way that couldn't happen otherwise.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I just to chime in a tiny little bit. Years ago, I used to do kickboxing, and time had a new perspective after I was in. Let's say how Martina said took so long to get ready. Well, then, okay, 5-10 minutes. Okay, I'm done. So then after that, watching a boxing match or something like that, it's like, oh, it's over already, or it's break time already. It's like, oh, I understand now. Okay, 5 minutes, I'm good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, I do get that when I do sports, particular sports like playing table tennis, for instance, it's where I just completely get out of the way and let the body do the work. And it's not necessarily the best thing sometimes because my body goes 100 miles and it's, I can't keep up with the body at times. And that showed me again, because it's the same, because it can be frustrating when I play table tennis. It's the same thing. I'm just like, I'm like a very, not aggressive is the wrong word, but I'm the one that initiates a lot, I'm not the one who stands back and waits for things to happen. And that's why energetically you just exhaust yourself so quickly. And this is really now, whilst I've done so much work left and right brain and hemisphere and all that, now it's like, okay, just calm down. The body needs to work with the soul. It's almost like the energy of the body is running 100 miles while the soul says, hey, calm down. I'm not even there yet. Where are you? Let's do this together. So there is that, and that's definitely the invitation. I saw this on Monday. I said, okay, well, no, I got to change this. This is too fast. I can't be that fast. I mean, apart from scaring everyone else,
Amazing.
So yeah, it's fun. But this is how we live and learn, right? As we are playing, and I couldn't fence without other people. Even dancing on my own, I can do it, but it's much more fun when you have, a group of 20 doing it because of the energy exchange. And then again, that's really an acknowledgement of who we are. And, there is not one person in this world that does not thrive on relationships. Thrive is maybe too strong of a word, but is alive because of relationships, because we are relating beings. And without relationships, we don't exist.
Well, that little baby wouldn't be anywhere if he didn't have a mommy and an auntie, right? To help teach him how to live life, to feed him and, show him all of that.
And how you ladies mentioned earlier is also an invitation to allow that inner kid to come out and play. So we may be showing him things and some things, but in other ways, it's like the re-parenting of ourselves, and we get to look at ourselves in a different way. As in, do we want to teach them this thing that we learned, or do we want to maybe shift this? Like, yeah, I learned it. Does it make sense? But the whole opportunity to play, it's just like really good. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is the gift, especially of the kids that are coming in now, because they're no longer malleable the way we were. You know, we were still by far too open to be conditioned. Those guys just don't, they come in with a different sort of attitude and soul sort of coding. And that is a huge opportunity. So when I hear now somebody is having a baby now, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. What an opportunity, as you say, to play and to really work with those young spirits, old souls or whatever they are at the time, to really, really, because they push your boundaries. They push, they know how to do that. And that's the biggest gift when you have somebody pushing your boundaries. I've always been in awe, challenge or not. That's allows you to step into that shapeshifter role, because those boundaries, as we said early on, they are not, you know, rigid. You have to be able to do this, that, like a harmonica. You know, is it a harmonica, or you call this instrument? Like it's
Accordion.
accordion. Yeah, we have such a thing in Austria. It's like wow, wow, wow. And every time I see this, I'm like, yeah, that's me. And
That
absolutely.
energy has been really helpful in clearing old programming out of the body, right? Especially out of like the liver and gallbladder and like the solar plexus area. Been energetically using an accordion to help expand, contract, expand, and then it releases, like the energy releases. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And you know, that 0 point energy, I mean, those new quantum physics ideas of, you know, or new understandings of what a black hole is, what a vacuum force is, this is so tremendously useful, because it starts aligning with the universal laws, and it starts to make perfect sense, and you can take out the emotional blah blah and just realize, okay, 0 point, this is, you know, that shunya point, that point of stillness from the cross, you know, right? If I'm there, if I bring all these energies, and then you can use obviously the heart, but I use the washing machine idea, just throw it in the machine, and I throw in, and that's how I wash, in fact, as well, black, white, green, everything. I just throw everything in, and then I just wash it like that, and then it comes out. Oh no, it's raw energy. Use it. So that repurposing, I am a huge recyclist, repurpose of energies, and that, you know, obviously extends into my environment, into my reality, by doing what I'm doing. I think I said it before. I even use at times I repurpose canvases, because it's just beautiful, you know. I mean, sometimes I never understand the idea, you buy a new canvas and then you have to prime it, and then you have to texture it, and then you have to prime it again or whatever. Just use one that's already there. You just paint over once, twice, and then you can play, you know. I mean, I totally cover everything. I don't use other people's you know, stuff, but and it's an interesting combination, because there is a conversation, a communication coming through, you know, that creates some more depth. You know, some people say, oh, you have to have about 50 layers in order to create depth. Well, you can do this energetically. Sometimes you don't have to have more than 2 layers. And all of a sudden you got that, because of the energy that you're putting into, or that's already been in there, you know. So anyway.
Just as a
Lovely.
side note with that art thing, my sister friend Earthy, who was on the show a few times,
Yes.
she's into art and painting, but from the person she's learning from, or like an online class, I forget how many layers, but it's like 3 or 7 layers that they do on a canvas, and they just paint over and over. And I'm just like, almost like, you're gonna cover that? Like, that's so beautiful. But it's interesting because it's like sometimes there's symbols or energy, but you're not going to see any of it, or some of it might come through, but it's just all over, and it's intentional in that way. It's like, wow, that is like, whoa. But at the same time, being willing to lay behind and allow things to go into the unseen, yet it's still present, you know? And it's just like pretty marvelous. but kind of what you were sharing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you can see the difference, sometimes. And of course, I'm like, okay, this is a waste of color, really. That's me coming through again. It's a waste of color, or is it? How can I do this differently? And then I have seen that I don't do that many layers. I don't need that, as far as I'm concerned, in order to have something that makes me happy. But then again, I think if you have sometimes, and sometimes what I use, they're just vinyl canvases. They're not like painted canvases. They're like prints I bought about 10 different ones. They're all motorbikes, and I paint over that. But you got the racing energy in the background, and it's not a layer, it's just a print. But you don't need that many layers because you've got the energy of the racing bike, and stuff like that. And that, for me, that creates. And when especially when I do that, the painting outside, with I can play on the wild side, When it comes to the black and white, that's a completely different way of focus. I have a different focus when it comes to that. That's going back to simplicity. That's different. But anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, well, we can talk about this once we have enough artists in our. I did a little artist chat with Barrett the other day. He asked me, and we did a little recording, and I talked a little bit about my process, which was fun to do because it's nice to actually have a chat, somebody asking you questions, because it makes you think that you probably wouldn't even, consider. But yeah. Good.
Well, I love this conversation today. Thank you so much. And just want to, put in, you're talking about the motorbike energy and painting over and still having the energy of whatever that was, right? Blended with the new.
Mhm.
And so, the way that I do perceive, whether it be political figures or situations or art or anything, is I always look at the energy behind the energy, right? And sometimes that's in a multi-dimensional way. Like, oh, is that person being energetically controlled by a puppet master, in a higher dimensional reality? So, you can look at, actors and political figures and, I mean, anyone in that way, right?
Mm.
And that, I think, gives you a wider level of awareness of what's going on and how you allow it to influence you.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, think in energy, see in energy, feel in energy, taste in energy. It just opens a completely different, it puts you in a much bigger box. It takes you out of that little box. And then sometimes you need to jump back into the little box too, so be able to jump from one box into the next and realize that is what consciousness is, and that is that duality of consciousness that we talk about, expansion, contractions. That is the natural flow of the seasons, right? The
And then
tide.
the giving and receiving, expansion, contraction, giving and receiving.
Exactly.
Thank you
Anya,
all.
I really loved, I know we're wrapping up, but I really loved your bus, how you shared that experience. And, I've had similar experiences, but just like how it just made me remember and go how we can be part of that, how we are part of that unseen fabric, and on certain things that we might want to persuade to be in a more harmonic way, how we can do that, like per your example, in our own way, but that bus example of not necessarily not imposing, but just emanating and
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to emanate in such a way that it could be a positive influence to a certain realm or individuals.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for saying that.
Great to be with all of you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for being here, girls. Mwah. Love you, and I see you next week. Yeah.
Sounds great.
All right. Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.